Let's start modding with NeoForge for 121. 121 Minecraft modding course is available down below, with over 11 hours of content covering everything from the basics all the way to block entities and custom mobs. Alright, we found ourselves back once again, this time with NeoForge. And for 121, it's going to be a wild ride once again when it comes to modding. And this time, of course, we're using NeoForge in this particular tutorial series. And as always, we're going to start at the very beginning. If you have no idea about modding or anything basically when it comes to how to make a Minecraft mod or even programming, then this is probably a good place to start. I'll break it down. We'll go through the setup, right? Basically, so that you have a project that you can then start with and start modding Minecraft with. But first of all, we need to download a couple of things, and you can also see there is a bit of an in-depth tutorial in this case, right? It is a little bit involved. There's quite a few steps that we need to go through, and each of them have to be taken carefully, so you will have to take a little bit of time here, especially in this first setup tutorial. But when you have that, then it is absolutely amazing, and modding is going to be so much fun. 121 is crazy. The new NeoForge project is going to be really freaking cool, so let's take a look. The first thing you need for modding Minecraft is you need a JDK or Java development kit. I basically always recommend the Eclipse Tamarin right here because that one has never failed me before. I've seen a couple of others that have some weird quirks. That is why I basically suggest this one. In Minecraft 121, we have to take the JDK version 21, over here the LTS version, make sure that the package type is on JDK, and then you can download it for whatever, well, operating system and architecture you're using. In my case, I am using Windows, and this is exactly the right thing. So here in my case, I'm going to download the MSI. This is just simply an installer, and then once it is downloaded, literally, you can simply install this onto your PC like any other program. One tiny caveat is very important. And that is when you're right here, make sure that the set or override Java home variable will be installed on local hard drive. That is extremely important. If we set this, then it's just going to be way easier down the line when we are actually modding Minecraft, when we're inside of IntelliJ. So keep that in mind, then just hit next and install onto your PC like any other program. There we go, the JDK is successfully installed and we can move on to IntelliJ IDEA. Now, IntelliJ IDEA is an IDE or integrated development environment. It is basically a fancy text editor allowing us to actually create Java programs basically, which modding Minecraft is basically a Java program. Now, this is extremely important. Hopefully you haven't clicked anything yet because with the link in the description below, on IntelliJ, you can of course choose Windows, macOS, or Linux, and then you have to scroll down to the community version. If I read any comment that, oh, Ultimate costs something, yes, this is why I've specifically said on the JetBrains IntelliJ IDEA download website, scroll down until you find the IntelliJ IDEA Community Edition. This one is free and built on open source. This is going to be more than enough that we need. We do not need the Ultimate Edition. That is, basically all of the different things that the Ultimate Edition gives us is overkill for everything we're trying to do here. So, once again, scroll down to the IntelliJ IDEA Community Edition, hit download right here, and then you know that it's the right thing that you've downloaded when the name of it is called Ideal C for community in this case, right? So Ideal C is the community edition, and then you're good to go. The same thing applies here. Simply install this onto your PC like any other program. And we'll start IntelliJ for the first time in just a second, but the first thing I want to do is I want to appeal a little bit for some Java knowledge. So, of course, Minecraft Java Edition requires some Java knowledge. And absolutely, we're always happy when new beginners start modding Minecraft. It is always an exciting time because it is really a cool hobby and possibly even, you know, a little bit of a side hustle, all of that. It's all possible. However, one thing is very important, and that is if you're actually serious and you're like, you know, I actually really want to get into Minecraft modding, then there is no way around getting into some amount of Java, okay? Now, yes, you'll be able to follow my steps right here to set up the project. That's absolutely correct. You will be maybe even able to add some items and add a block. But if you're just typing out everything that I write and you're not understanding some of the underlying structures, right, that are below it when it comes to Java, you're just never going to get very far along. That is why I have this Java introduction over here for Minecraft modding. It's a great playlist. In this case, I'm still using JDK17 in the playlist right here, but it doesn't matter that much. The differences are minute at best. It is a great place to start. You can, of course, also start with any other Java introduction that exists on YouTube. There are so many on YouTube. It is actually crazy. So feel free to, peruse that, of course, and then maybe either come back or do this in parallel, right? Learn a little bit of Java, learn a little bit of modding, like sort of at the side, and then you're pretty much going to be good to go. I basically want to make sure that you understand you will need Java if you want to do this in any serious way, shape, or form, so keep that in mind. But if you're already intermediate at Java, well, then you're good to go. And for anyone else, we can then move on to the Neo4j project. Oh yes, absolutely amazing. This is pretty freaking cool, right? First time we're using Neo4j on the channel, and it is going to be absolutely fantastic. Now, there are two things that are quite interesting for Neo4j. Number one is the MDK list. That is actually what we wanted to open up over here. This is on GitHub. And the second thing is the documentation. This is actually going to be so useful to you. I can tell you, it is actually crazy. If you go to the Neo4j documentation, there are so many things documented right now that it is actually crazy, right? So even just this documentation is probably going to get you quite far. Once again, of course, granted, if you know Java, and then you're going to be absolutely amazing. Now, I will reference this documentation a couple of times. I will also link the documentation down below. It is absolutely amazing. Like, props to everyone who's worked on this. Absolutely amazing, guys. Well, basically, the Neo4j MDKs, this is where we get our, the actual project from, because we need sort of a base project that we then start using. And in this case, of course, it's going to be built on Neo4j. And very importantly here is we want to choose the MDK 121 mod dev Gradle. So we want to use the mod dev Gradle one. We simply click on this public template, and now you might not be logged into GitHub. So you now need a GitHub account. There's basically no other way around it. Basically, just go to github.com, make an account. I'm telling you, it is an absolutely reputable site. It is basically the go-to site for anything related to uploading code and sharing your code and things like that. And then it is super freaking easy, okay? You go onto this, and what you want to do is you want to use this template. So you're logged in, you're on the Neo4j MDKs website right here, right on GitHub, MDK 121 mod dev Gradle. And then you go to use this template, and you want to say create new repository. You click this, and then you can see we now are creating a new repository. You will create your repository for yourself. I'm going to create this in Tutorials by Kaupmjo. The repository name in my instance is going to be Neo4j-tutorial-1.21.x. There you go. And that is going to be the actual repository that is also going to be available to you down below. And now here is the coolest thing. I'm going to keep this private for the time being. You, if you want to share this with anyone, want to make it public, of course, right? Mine's going to be public in the future as well. You can, of course, change this, right? You can change the visibility in the future too. But in this case, do keep in mind that if you want to share this, like if you want to have someone help you on Discord or similar websites, then of course you need to make it public in order to share the GitHub repository. But in this case, I'm going to keep it private. I'm happy with all of this. And then I simply hit create repository. Then in the background, you can see it's going to generate the repository for us. And now from that point onwards, well, now we need to somehow get this onto our own PC because, well, I mean, IntelliJ, we have this onto our PC, but we don't have this particular project on our PC. What are we going to do now? Well, we're going to start IntelliJ for the first time. And what you will find is that you will have not exactly this view, but you have to have a new project button, you have an open button, and a get from VCS button. And the get from VCS button is exactly the interesting thing that we want to use, because on our new GitHub repository that we've just created, we want to go to the code right here and then simply copy this HTTPS URL. And then we go in here, get from VCS. We're going to put the URL in up here, and then the directory where you want to basically put this down here. You're going to hit clone over here, and it's going to clone the repository. It's going to then ask you to trust and open the project right here. I'm going to trust it, and then a new window will appear right here, as you can see, and it's going to start doing something. So on the left side, you can see the hammer has a green dot right there, so it starts building. Just let this run through. Basically, you can just keep it going. Anything that's going to happen, we're going to basically change a couple of things in a second once that is done, because there are basically two outcomes. You either, which is the preferable outcome, get a build successful in a number of seconds. That would be ideal. If you don't get that, if we get a build failed, that is totally fine. There's a couple of things that we can do to mitigate the build fail basically, and hopefully get you to a build successful. If this is the first time that you're using IntelliJ, the first thing you want to do in the project right here on the left, you want to go to the 3 dots, tree appearance, and you want to make sure that both flatten packages as well as flatten packages right here. So both of those, right, all of them, compact middle packages, flatten modules, and flatten packages, all of those are turned off. That is going to be the ideal way that this is set up, because that is the setup that I have, so that you're not going to be confused. Oh, this looks different than I have it. And then you're going to be good to go. Okay, so if you do not have a build successful, what you want to do is you want to simply open the example mod class right here. Now, a lot of red is probably going to be thrown your way. That is totally fine. You might also have a yellow line here at the top that says no project SDK is set up. You can then click on the right side over here and choose the 21, right? So JDK 21. If that does not appear, no worries at all. Go to the main menu. Then we want to go to project structure. We want to go to projects and make sure that the SDK right here is set to 21. There you go. That's going to be awesome. And then the language level is also set to 21. That's the case. Okay, that's great. And then under settings, we want to go to settings, then build execution deployment, build tools, Gradle. And down here, if this says Java home, that's great. As long as it also says Eclipse Tamarin 21, right? If it does not say that, then you need to change it in order for it to actually say 21, right? That is the most important thing here. If you make sure that both of those things are done, then you can go to the little elephant over here at the top right corner and click the reload all Gradle projects button. And then you basically should hopefully be good to go with a build successful after that. Those are going to be probably the 2 major things in this case. But of course, we're not done quite just yet, because there is actually quite a few things to do. Now, the first time you've thrown into this, you're probably going to be like, oh my lord, there are so many different things in here, right? There's so much stuff. What does all of this mean? Well, right now, what we're going to look at is we will actually reshape this particular class, right? The example mod class, first of all, will reshape it where it's located, right? So on the left side, you can see the project structure. This is basically your folder structure for your custom project. You can see that everything is under Java, and then right now it's under com example mod. This is going to change. The name example mod is going to change, and a couple of other things will change too. So the first thing we'll do in this case is we will click on example mod right here at the top over here on the package, and we're going to click on this, press Shift F6, then a new rename window should appear. Now I want to rename this completely, and I will rename this to net.kaupmjo.tutorialmod. In your case, you want to do net or com or de or ch dot, and then, for example, your online name or your first name. Do note that the name is going to be public, right? So if you write your first and last name, then you might be, that might not be the best idea. I just want to mention this, but basically you want to do it like that. And then .tutorial mod, because that's the name of the project in this case. We'll then hit refactor, which is going to then move the classes. So you can see in our project folder now, under Java com example, there's nothing in there, but under net Kaupmjo tutorial mod, both the config as well as the example mod classes are now situated right there. So in our case, we can then delete the com package. Once that is deleted, we want to change 2 names. Number 1, the name of the class. Now, it's extremely important you don't just change the name, because you can see, number 1, we're getting some errors. Number 2, red underlines. This is not what you want to do. You want to click on this, press Shift F6, and then once again, start typing. So in this case, we're going to start typing tutorial mod. Notice the way that I've written this. I've written this with an uppercase T and an uppercase M. Those are what's called Java conventions. You have conventions on how you name certain things. So for example, what you can see is that they're all completely in uppercase. Why is this the case? Well, it's the case because that is a Java convention for things that are final. So you want to follow those as closely as possible. And class names are basically always starting with an uppercase character, and then every subsequent word inside of that class name will also have an uppercase character. That's the idea. And then I'm just going to format this a little bit differently. Now, all of this, including the code and basically the formatted stuff, everything already done, is going to be available to you down below for download, because I will get rid of all of the deferred registers right here. I'll get off the creative mode tab. I'll get rid of the example item and the example block. Why is this the case? We will add all of those individually in later tutorials, in the next tutorial and the coming tutorials. Why would this be the case? I just want to format this a little bit differently. You can, of course, use this as well. I'm not going to use it. That's basically the whole idea. And then a couple of things, as you can see, are going to get turned red right here, no worries at all. We're just going to delete those and you're going to be good to go. I'm going to make the comment setup method empty. I'm going to keep it though. Same with the add creative method. We'll also empty it, but we will keep it. The on server starting method, I will also empty it and basically reformat this a little bit differently, but we'll keep all of those. So you can see at the end over here, we'll end up with around about 84 lines of code in the tutorial mod class. And this is also what I will refer to in the future as your main class. And then the last thing we want to change is the mod ID right here. We click on this, press Shift F6, and I'm going to change this to mod_ID. That's just a personal preference. This is not necessary. What is necessary is changing the actual value of the mod ID. And this, well, this is now extremely important. The mod ID is your unique identifier for your mod, meaning it needs to be unique. It needs to be long enough to be unique. So even if I'm going to say, well, this is my tutorial mod, I could just be like, oh, Tmod, that's fine. That is not long enough, right? I would definitely say you want it a little bit longer. If you have, John's awesome blocks, right? JAB, it's a little bit, it's not quite long enough, right? Then do John, even if you do John's awesome B, even that would be fine, right? But make it long enough so it is unique. And the second thing that is quite important is that your mod ID can only contain lowercase characters, no spaces. So keep in mind that, I could, for example, you could say, well, I mean, tutorial mod, bam. Nope, that does not work because it can only contain lowercase characters. Then you're like, oh, okay, well, fair enough. Then I'm going to call it tutorial mod. This also does not work. It cannot contain any spaces. So tutorial mod, all one word, all in lowercase. That is going to be our mod ID for the tutorial series. And once we have this situated right here, what we can then do is go into the Gradle.properties file and actually change a few things here too. Mainly at the bottom right here, the mod properties. Those are going to be the first things here. Our mod ID, once again, tutorial mod. This one has to match exactly this one. And if they do not, then you're going to get an error and it's not going to work. The name of your mod, as you can see, is a human readable display. This one does not follow the same laws that the mod ID uses. Keep that in mind as well. Our license, in this case, is going to be MIT. We're going to start with mod version 0.01. And our group ID in this case is, at least mine is net.kaupmjo.tutorial mod, right? This is simply the package structure. So net.kaupmjo.tutorial mod, right? There you go. The mod author is going to be Kaupmjo, and then this is just going to be a tutorial mod made by Kaupmjo. There you go. And that is everything that we need in the mod properties right here. Now at the top over here, we can actually change a couple of things already. Now the reason being is, if we look at the current version for NeoForge, it is actually 21.0.157. So simply the MDKs haven't updated yet. That is, of course, totally fine. So we're going to just do that. If you're watching this in the future, right, when it comes to the versions, it's extremely important. I will have in the description below a compatibility, right? So let's say you're watching this in 121.7, right? Let's say Minecraft is going insane and they have like 7 minor versions and something is not working with 121.5. Do please note that there is going to be a compatibility in the description below, and please follow that if there is anything there. There might also be something in the pinned comment. It's just going to be the case that things change quite quickly. But in this case, what we can do is we can change this to 157. And the parchment mappings, I actually know that those are under 2024-07-28 already, so that's going to be fine. And that should be pretty much everything we need. So then we can hit the little elephant right here. If it doesn't appear, you can go to the Gradle and simply reload all Gradle projects. That's also going to be fine. And then once again, it's going to build something, download a couple of things. This might take, anywhere from a couple of minutes to a couple of seconds. Anything in between could be the case. Usually should be fine, but there you go. So just be patient, let this run through, and once we get a build successful, we can proceed from there. Right, a build successful, and after we have updated, we want to go to the Gradle tab right here and click this little button, download sources. That is going to download us basically the sources for the vanilla Minecraft code. And basically what we can do now is, let's say for example, the build creative mode tab contents event, a long name over here. If you control left click on this, you can see this blue bar. If you ever see this blue bar, then you can basically, rest assured, you can go to Gradle, click the download sources button, and then simply hit attach sources. That should automatically attach the sources. And now when you open any different vanilla or NeoForge class, then it's going to have the proper sources situated right here. That's the whole idea. That should be fine, and then you're basically good to go. And now what is set up, but we are pretty much finally done. What we can now go is on the current file right here and simply hit the play button on the client, so run client, and that is going to start Minecraft. If you do this for the first time, it might take a little while, but in this case, what we can actually see is, look at this, the project is already starting, and we're going to be hit with the narrator in mere seconds. And of course, there he is.
Press enter to enable the narrator.
We don't need to do that. Let's go to the music over here, turn this down a little bit, and there we go. So we're now in Neo4j, and under mods, you can see there's the tutorial mod by Kaupendro over here. It is loaded, MIT license, a tutorial mod made by Kaupendro. Pretty freaking awesome. And we're basically off to the races, starting Neo4j modding. Pretty freaking cool. Now, one last thing that you might have noticed is that some of your names over here turn blue or green. Sometimes they will even turn red. That is totally fine. That has to do with the GitHub repository because, of course, we have created the GitHub repository. We can actually double check this right here. And what we can do is we can change, well, we can change things. Obviously, we have changed quite a few things over here. And then we can commit and push those. So we can see we've changed the config Java file. We've changed the tutorial mod Java file and the Gradle properties file. So we can simply hit the check over here. And we can say changed some things. We can then hit commit over here. This is going to commit our changes sort of into our memory. And then at the top over here, you can see that the main now has this little button over here, like the green arrow. And we can then hit push over here. And we can say, you know, usually you're going to get, oh, there's warnings. Don't worry. The entirety of Minecraft modding is a whole warning, basically. There's no way around that. And we can simply hit push anyways. It's going to push over here, right? So it's going to basically push those changes onto GitHub. And if I now go back to GitHub and reload this, what you'll find is that change some things right here are now basically uploaded. Absolutely fantastic. That is pretty freaking cool. And that is the whole setup basically done. And with this and the coming tutorials, we're basically going to start on modding with Neo4j. It's going to be pretty freaking awesome. There's tons of things to be added, so it's going to be a very, very interesting ride in the 121 series over here. But that's going to be it for this tutorial right here. I genuinely hope you found this useful and you learned something new and you've set up your basically project over here in the beginning. And I'll see you in the next tutorial. So, yeah.